Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make a cranberry upside down cake, and this is what it looks like. It's a beautiful looking cake. You have the fresh cranberries in a caramelized sugar, and then underneath is a fluffy and soft white butter cake. So we're going to start with our cranberry layer. So first preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And then you will need a 9-inch, that's 23 centimeter round cake pan. And then I'm just going to butter that. So we don't want anything sticking here when you're doing upside down cake. And I'm just using melted butter. And then using a pastry brush makes it easier than using a cold piece of butter. Okay. So you really want to make sure to prepare your pan well. So we don't want those cranberries sticking. So then we're going to make our caramelized sugar layers. So you will need a small to medium sized saucepan. And then you will need 5 tablespoons, which is a third of a cup, 70 grams of butter. I'm using unsalted here. I mean, if you want, you could use salted. And I'm also using 2/3 of a cup, which is 140 grams of firmly packed light brown sugar. So what we're going to do is put this over medium heat, and we're going to melt the butter and sugar together and then just bring it up to the boil. Okay, that looks good. It's come up to a boil. There we go. So what we want to do is we just want to deepen or caramelize this sugar mixture just a little. So we're going to boil it probably maybe 1 to 2 minutes, just until it deepens in color. Okay, so we got a little color to that. So I'm just going to remove it. And I'm just going to pour it right away into my cake pan. And then just kind of swirl it to even it out, like so. You see, already looks really good. And then we're going to take 8 ounces, which is 2 1/4 cups or 225 grams of fresh cranberries. And we're just going to evenly put a nice layer. Now make sure you wash your cranberries and then get rid of any of the ones that are kind of soft. Okay, that looks pretty good. What we're looking for is a solid layer, so you may use them all or you may not. That looks pretty good. Because they do shrink a little, so we want to make sure we have a nice solid layer of cranberries, because we do, as it's called, an upside down cake, we are going to turn it upside down once we finish baking it. So there, that looks good. So what I'm going to do is just clean up, just put this aside, and when I come back, we'll start our cake batter. So now for our cake batter. If you have a stand mixer like I have here, use a paddle attachment, or you could just use a hand mixer for this. Now, about a half hour before you make your batter, take 2 large eggs and separate them and put the yolks in one bowl and the whites in another. It's always easier to separate eggs while they're still cold. And then just cover them and let them come to room temperature. Because we're going to beat the whites separately, because that will give us a lighter, more fluffy cake. So the first thing we need to do is take a 1/2 cup of butter. I'm using unsalted. You could use salted here. And have it at room temperature. And then I'm just going to beat that until it's nice and creamy. Good. So next we're going to add 1 cup, that's 200 grams of granulated white sugar. Stuck in the bowl there. And then I'm going to beat this on medium-high speed until it's really nice and light and fluffy. That'll take maybe 3 minutes, somewhere around there. this is what you're looking for. We want to get some air in there, so that helps us have a really nice light and fluffy cake. So next, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract for a little flavoring. And then our 2 large egg yolks. And I'm just going to beat that just until it's all mixed together. Okay, looks good. And turn to yellow from the yolks. Scrape down. There we go. So now, in a separate bowl, I have, finish this up here, okay. So I have 1½ cups, that's 195 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. And to that, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons, 7 grams of baking powder, and just 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm just using a wire whisk. You could sift it if you want. Just mix everything together. You really want to make sure that baking powder is mixed into the flour. And then we will also need 1/2 cup, 120 milliliters of milk. You can use, depending on how rich you want your cake to be, you could use a whole milk, or I'm actually using a reduced fat of 2%, because that's what I have in the house. So now we're going to add the flour in 3 additions and alternate that with the milk in 2. So I'm going to add about 1/3 of the flour, and I'm just going to mix that in. Have your mixer on low speed because you don't want that flour coming up. Okay, and then you don't want to over mix here. You want everything mixed together, but you don't want to over mix because then it tends to make the cake a little more tough. So just until everything's mixed in. A little of the milk. More flour. Rest of our milk. The reason we do this in stages is so that we don't overmix our batter. So I'm just going to finish this up, mixing. Okay, that looks good. I'll just give it a quick stir by hand. A little noisy there, sorry about that. So now, there's a little flour left over, so I'm just going to give that a quick stir. Now, we have to beat our egg whites. So, if you have another mixing bowl for your stand mixer, you could use that. Or you could use a hand mixer, or I often just do it by hand with a wire whisk, beat my whites. But since I have an extra bowl, I am going to use that. Now for this, I'm going to use my whisk attachment. So I have my 2 large egg whites, and you want those at room temperature because they will whisk better than if they were cold. And then I'm going to add just 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar, and that helps stabilize the whites. Now, if you don't have cream of tartar, you could just leave it out. Or you could use an equal amount, just 1/4 teaspoon of lemon juice. That would work just as well. So I'm just going to beat this, start at slow speed, and then continue to whip it up until it just forms stiff peaks, almost. that looks good. So this is what you're looking for. They're stiff, but there's a little bit of a droop. If they're really stiff, it becomes quite hard to fold it into your batter. So now what I'm going to do, just add a little of your whites to your batter, just to lighten it, because you got fluffy white, or fluffy and quite soft egg whites, and you got a more stiff batter. So if you add a little at the beginning, just to kind of break that cake batter up a bit. Just big strokes. Make sure you get the bottom, and then I'll add the rest. And always make sure you get to the bottom of the bowl. This is such a nice cake batter for this cake. So that looks good. So now we take our pan with our cranberries and just pour it over the top. Okay. And then you could use back of a spoon, or I'm using a offset spatula. We're just going to spread this evenly out on top of our cranberries. So now we're going to bake this for somewhere, I mean, everyone's oven is a little different here, so use the baking time as a guide. Around 35 to 40 minutes until it's beautiful golden brown. It just starts to pull away from the sides of the pan, and a toothpick inserted into the cake will come out clean. Okay, so our cranberry upside down cake is now done. You can see beautiful golden brown color, starting to pull away from the edges of the pan, and when I put a toothpick into the center, it came out clean. So now, you just want to let it cool on a wire rack in the pan for about 10-15 minutes, and then I'll show you what it looks like when we take it out of the pan. So now we're ready to take it out of the pan. So just take a spatula or a knife and just run it around just to make sure we don't want any sticking. Okay, looks good. So then take either, if you have a cake stand like this, or just a plate, put it on there, and then let's see how it works. It's still a little hot. You might want mitts. Oh, okay, so that worked pretty well. Now, I must admit, sometimes I do get a little cranberries stuck. Don't worry about it. Just take your little spatula and just scrape it off and put it on there. So now, doesn't just stop and say, doesn't that look gorgeous? I mean, it's just so pretty. And this cake is really good warm, from the oven. You can keep it overnight and then in the fridge and then just reheat it. It's very nice, but you can't beat it fresh, I think. Okay, doesn't that look great? It's a really soft and fluffy cake. And give it a try. I'm going to take here lots of cranberries. That's very nice because the, cranberries are so sour, and the caramelized sugar just really softens them and sweetens them. But there's still just a little tang, and then of course the butter cake is really nice and light and fluffy. So enjoy, and until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.
you.